When Hyunjin forces every Stray Kids member to leave the dorm, only Felix's return reveals the heartbreaking truth hidden behind his cold decision. Episode 1, Everyone get out. Right now! Hyunjin's voice cut through the dorm like shattered glass. It wasn't loud, yet it carried a force that froze everyone where they stood. His usually calm eyes were cold, almost empty, as he stood in front of the living room entrance with both hands clenched into fists. Bang Chan stared at him in disbelief. What are you talking about? I said leave. Silence swallowed the room. The television continued playing in the background, its cheerful sounds painfully out of place against the suffocating tension. Rain tapped softly against the windows, while the faint smell of freshly cooked ramen still lingered in the air, making the moment feel even more unreal. Lee No frowned. This isn't funny. I'm not joking. Hyunjin didn't blink. His breathing was steady, but his fingers trembled ever so slightly. Changbin stepped closer. If something happened, tell us. No. Han laughed nervously, hoping someone would break the strange atmosphere. Seriously, stop acting weird. Hyunjin looked directly into his eyes. I don't want any of you here. Those words landed harder than anyone expected. Seungmin slowly lowered the cup in his hand. In looked toward Bang Chan, silently asking him to fix whatever had gone wrong. Bang Chan took another step. Hyunjin. For a brief second, Hyunjin's expression cracked. Fear. Not anger. Fear. But it disappeared almost immediately. Take everyone and leave. Not until you explain. You don't understand. Then make us understand. Hyunjin looked away. His heartbeat thundered inside his ears. He wanted to tell them everything. He wanted to beg them to stay. Instead, he forced himself to become the villain. Because that was easier than letting them see what terrified him. 3 hours earlier, the dorm had been peaceful. Felix had left early that morning for a solo schedule outside the city. Before leaving, he had smiled brightly and reminded everyone not to wait for dinner. Hyunjin had laughed. I'll steal your dessert. Felix had simply pointed a finger at him. If you do, I'll know. Everything had felt normal. Until the package arrived. A plain black box. No sender. No address. Only one word written across the top. Hyunjin? He almost ignored it. Curiosity won. Inside rested an old digital recorder. When he pressed play, static filled the room. Then, a distorted voice. If you want Felix to come home alive, Hyunjin's blood turned cold. Send every member away before sunset. The recorder clicked. Another burst of static. Then a second sentence. If anyone stays, Felix dies. Hyunjin replayed it. Again. 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 Each time the voice sounded just as calm. Just as certain. He immediately called Felix. No answer. Again. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Messages remained unread. His stomach tightened. He contacted Felix's manager. No response. His breathing became uneven. Then another notification appeared on his phone. An unknown number. One photograph. Felix standing beside a black van. He looked unaware that someone was watching him. Another message followed. We're watching. Hyunjin felt every drop of warmth leave his body. His hands shook violently. Was it fake? Was someone playing a cruel joke? He wanted to believe it. But another image arrived. This time, the photo showed the road Felix had posted on social media only an hour before. It was real. Someone truly knew where Felix was. Someone was close enough to watch him. Hyunjin nearly ran to Bang Chan's room. He stopped. If the threat was real, telling everyone could put Felix in greater danger. He looked back at the recorder. The silence inside the dorm suddenly felt heavier than concrete. Every sound became suspicious. Every passing car outside made his heart race. He made the decision alone. The decision he hated more than anything. He would push everyone away, even if they hated him forever. Back in the present, Bang Chan refused to move. No. Hyunjin's jaw tightened. You've always taught us to face problems together. This isn't one of those problems. It is if it involves you. It doesn't. You've been shaking for the last 10 minutes. Hyunjin instinctively hid his trembling hands behind his back. Lee No noticed. So did Sungmin. Han exchanged worried glances with Changbin. None of them recognized the person standing before them. Hyunjin had always worn his emotions openly. Now his face resembled a locked door. "I'll ask one last time," Bang Chan said quietly. "What happened?" Hyunjin swallowed. The answer burned inside his throat. Instead, he lied. "I don't want to be with stray kids anymore." The room froze. Even the rain outside seemed to stop. Changbin's eyes widened. Han stared in complete disbelief. Sungmin slowly shook his head. "No." Hyunjin forced himself to continue. "I'm tired." Bang Chan looked devastated. "You don't mean that." "I do. You can't even look at me while saying it." Hyunjin closed his eyes. Every word felt like another knife turning inside his chest. If leaving hurts them, they'll leave. That was all he could think. Protect Felix, even if it meant destroying himself. Minutes later, the dorm door closed. One by one, the members finally walked out. Not because they believed him, because Bang Chan silently decided they needed space before returning to confront him again. Hyunjin stood alone. The silence was unbearable. His knees finally gave out. He collapsed onto the living room floor. His breathing became ragged. For the first time that day, he cried. Not loudly, just enough for the empty dorm to hear. Outside, thunder echoed across the dark sky. Far away, a familiar car slowly entered the city. Outside, thunder echoed across the dark sky. Far away, a familiar car slowly entered the city. Inside sat Felix, completely unaware that the place he called home had already been torn apart by a secret no one else knew. Felix leaned his head against the cold window as the city lights blurred into long golden streaks beneath the evening rain. His schedule had ended earlier than expected, and for the first time in weeks, he felt genuinely relaxed. The staff chatted quietly in the front seats while soft music drifted through the car. But Felix couldn't shake an uneasy feeling that had followed him since the afternoon. His phone battery had died hours earlier. He smiled to himself, imagining the teasing he would receive for forgetting to charge it again. Hyunjin would probably complain about having to eat dinner without him, while Han would insist that someone had stolen Felix's dessert. The familiar thought warmed him. Then the car slowed. The driver frowned. That's strange. Traffic had completely stopped. Red brake lights stretched endlessly ahead, reflecting across the rain-soaked road like rivers of fire. The manager checked his navigation. There wasn't supposed to be an accident here. Several minutes passed without movement. Felix quietly looked outside. Something felt wrong. Not because of the traffic, because of the black SUV parked several cars away. It hadn't moved once. Its headlights remained off despite the heavy rain. The windows were too dark to see inside. For reasons he couldn't explain, Felix felt as though someone was watching him. A chill crawled down his spine. He looked away, telling himself he was simply exhausted. Finally, traffic began moving again. The SUV disappeared into another lane. Felix let out a slow breath. By the time he reached the dorm building, night had completely fallen. Rain drummed against the pavement as he hurried toward the entrance, pulling his hood over his head. He smiled. I wonder if they're still awake. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Everything was unusually quiet. Normally, laughter echoed through the hallway long before he reached the dorm. Tonight, nothing. Only silence. Felix unlocked the door. Guys, I'm home. No answer. He stepped inside. The lights were dim. The living room looked untouched. Half-finished bowls of ramen still rested on the table, now completely cold. A blanket had fallen onto the floor beside the couch, and someone's mug remained where it had been abandoned hours earlier. It looked as though everyone had left in the middle of dinner. His smile slowly disappeared. Chan? Nothing. Han? Still nothing. Then he heard it. A quiet sound. Almost impossible to notice. A shaky breath. It came from the living room. Felix carefully walked forward. Hyunjin sat alone on the floor with his back against the couch. His head hung low. His eyes were red. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Hyunjin slowly lifted his head. The moment he saw Felix standing there, relief flooded across his face so suddenly that it almost looked painful. You... His voice cracked. You're safe. Before Felix could answer, Hyunjin stood so quickly that he nearly lost his balance. Within seconds, he had crossed the room and pulled Felix into a tight embrace. Felix froze. Hyunjin was trembling. Not slightly. Violently. His breathing was uneven, as though he had been holding himself together for hours. Felix gently placed a hand on his back. Hyunjin. What happened? No answer came. Only silence. After nearly a minute, Hyunjin finally stepped back. His eyes searched Felix from head to toe, checking for injuries. Were you followed? Felix blinked. What? Did anyone stop your car? No. Did anyone talk to you? No. Hyunjin closed his eyes in visible relief. Felix had never seen him like this. What are you talking about? Hyunjin looked toward the dining table. The black recorder still lay there. He had wanted to throw it away countless times. Instead, he picked it up with shaking hands. I need you to hear something. Felix frowned. Hyunjin pressed play. Static filled the room. Then the distorted voice echoed once more. If you want Felix to come home alive, send every member away before sunset. Felix's expression changed instantly. The room suddenly felt colder. Neither of them spoke until the recording ended. Felix slowly looked up. You believed this? I couldn't risk being wrong. You should have called me. I did. Felix reached into his pocket. His phone remained completely dead. Realization spread across his face. I couldn't reach you, Hyunjin whispered. Then they sent pictures of you. Felix stared at him. They knew exactly where you were. A heavy silence settled between them. Outside, thunder rolled across the night. For the first time, Felix understood why the dorm was empty. Hyunjin hadn't pushed everyone away because he wanted to. He had done it because he thought it was the only way to protect him. Felix looked at his friend whose exhausted eyes revealed hours of fear, guilt, and loneliness. Without saying a word, Felix stepped forward and hugged him again. This time, Hyunjin didn't try to stay strong. The tears he had been holding back finally fell, disappearing into the quiet of the empty dorm. Felix remained silent as Hyunjin's breathing slowly steadied. The rain outside had softened into a gentle drizzle, but inside the dorm, the weight of unanswered questions lingered like a storm that refused to pass. I need to call Chan, Felix said quietly. Hyunjin's hand instinctively reached out and stopped him. Wait. Felix looked into his eyes. They might still be watching. The words settled heavily between them. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Felix slowly lowered his phone. You really believe whoever sent this hasn't stopped? Hyunjin nodded. They knew where...
They knew when you left. They knew exactly what to threaten. Felix glanced toward the window. The curtains were half open, revealing the dimly lit street below. Cars occasionally passed, their headlights briefly illuminating the room before fading into darkness. Everything looked ordinary, yet nothing felt safe anymore. Felix walked to the window and carefully pulled the curtain aside. A delivery motorcycle sped past. An elderly couple crossed the street holding a single umbrella. Nothing unusual. Still, the uneasy feeling remained. He closed the curtain. We can't keep this from everyone forever. I know. They're worried. I know. You hurt them. Hyunjin lowered his head. I know. Each answer sounded quieter than the last. Felix sighed. I've never seen you this scared. Hyunjin gave a faint, bitter smile. I wasn't scared for myself. Those words struck Felix harder than he expected. He remembered every unanswered call, every unread message. Every hour Hyunjin had spent believing something terrible might happen. An overwhelming sense of guilt settled inside him. I'm sorry. Hyunjin looked surprised. You don't have to apologize. If my phone hadn't died, it isn't your fault. Before either of them could continue, a sudden knock echoed through the dorm. 3 slow knocks. Both of them froze. No one was expecting visitors. Hyunjin instinctively grabbed Felix's wrist. Don't answer. The knocking came again, this time louder. Bang, bang, bang. Felix frowned. What if it's Chan? Hyunjin remained silent. The third round of knocks came with a familiar voice. Hyunjin. Bang Chen. Relief instantly washed over Felix. It's them. Hyunjin hurried to the door. The moment it opened, Bang Chan stepped inside, followed by Lee No, Changbin, Han, Seungmin, and In. No one spoke. For several long seconds, the members simply looked at Hyunjin. His swollen eyes, his pale face, the exhaustion he could no longer hide. Then Bang Chan walked forward and pulled him into a firm embrace. You idiot. Hyunjin's shoulders trembled. You should have told us. I couldn't. You don't get to decide something like this alone. Hyunjin finally broke. I'm sorry. His voice cracked into sobs. I thought if I told you, something would happen to Felix. The members stood in stunned silence as Felix quietly explained. Everything, the recorder, the anonymous photographs, the unanswered calls, and the terrifying message that had driven Hyunjin to force everyone out of the dorm. When he finished, no one spoke for a while. Han was the first to break the silence. So, he wasn't pushing us away. Changbin slowly shook his head. He was protecting Felix. Lino let out a long breath and rubbed his forehead. I knew something wasn't right. Seungmin looked at Hyunjin with softened eyes. You carried all of this alone? Hyunjin nodded weakly. I didn't know what else to do. Bangchan. Placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Next time, there won't be a next time, Hyunjin whispered. Bang Chan smiled sadly. No, there will always be a next time. And when it comes, we face it together. For the first time that night, the atmosphere inside the dorm became a little warmer. The members gathered in the living room again. Cold ramen was replaced with fresh bowls. Someone brewed hot tea. Han tried making a joke that was so terrible everyone groaned. Even Hyunjin managed a small laugh. It felt as though the nightmare was finally ending. None of them noticed the black sedan parked across the street. Its engine remained off. Inside, an unseen figure lowered a pair of binoculars. A phone screen glowed faintly in the darkness. One message was typed before being sent. They're all together again. A reply arrived almost instantly. Good. Phase 2 begins tonight. The warmth inside the dorm lasted only a few minutes before. Bang Chan's expression turned serious again. He placed the digital recorder on the coffee table and stared at it, as if it might reveal another secret. No one leaves alone from now on, he said quietly. The members nodded without hesitation. Hyunjin sat silently beside Felix, still haunted by the memory of the anonymous message. Although everyone was finally together again, he couldn't shake the feeling that the danger had never truly disappeared. Felix noticed his distant gaze. You don't have to carry this by yourself anymore. Hyunjin managed a faint smile. I know. For the first time since the nightmare began, he wanted to believe those words. The group spent the next hour talking through everything that had happened. Felix described every detail of his trip, trying to remember whether anyone had behaved strangely. He mentioned the black SUV caught in traffic behind their vehicle. It stayed there for a long time, Felix recalled. At the time, I thought it was just another car. Bang Chan exchanged a glance with Lee No. Did you see the license plate? Felix slowly shook his head. No, I only remember the headlights. Han leaned back with a sigh. So whoever planned this never actually wanted to hurt Felix? No, Hyunjin answered softly. If they had plenty of chances. Then why threaten us? No one had an answer. The silence grew heavier. Bang Chan finally stood. We're reporting this tomorrow. Hyunjin looked up. You think they'll believe us? They don't have to believe everything, Bang Chan replied. But we're not ignoring this. The conversation gradually shifted to lighter topics. Changbin ordered late-night fried chicken. Han complained about being hungry again. And In laughed when Seungmin teased him for nearly falling asleep on the couch. For a brief moment, the dorm felt like home again. Hyunjin watched everyone carefully. He realized how close he had come to losing their trust forever. Quietly, he stood and bowed his head.
I'm sorry. To all of you. The room fell silent. Bang Chan walked over first. Instead of saying anything, he wrapped Hyunjin in a hug. One by one, the others joined them. No more apologies, Changbin said with a smile. We're family, Seungmin added. And families make mistakes, Lee No finished. Hyunjin closed his eyes. The fear that had gripped his heart all day slowly began to loosen. Outside, dawn was beginning to paint the horizon with pale shades of blue. The long night had finally come to an end. Several streets away, however, someone watched the sunrise from inside a parked car. A gloved hand removed a memory card from a small camera. On its screen were dozens of photographs taken through the dorm. Windows, every member reunited, every embrace, every smile. The person slipped the memory card into an envelope already marked with a single word in black ink. Hyunjin. Without a sound, the engine started, and the car disappeared into the waking city, leaving behind only the unsettling feeling that someone, somewhere, still knew far more about them than they ever imagined. Morning sunlight poured through the dorm windows, replacing the shadows that had haunted the previous night. For the first time in hours, the members gathered around the dining table with warm cups of coffee and a quiet determination. No one mentioned leaving the dorm alone. No one joked about what had happened. The memory of Hyunjin's frightened eyes was still fresh in everyone's mind. Bang-chan broke the silence. "We'll go together." Everyone agreed. After breakfast, the group carefully examined the mysterious recorder once more. It looked ordinary, no fingerprints, no label, nothing that could reveal where it had come from. Felix turned it over in his hands. Someone planned this carefully. Lino nodded. They wanted Hyunjin to panic. And they succeeded, Hyunjin admitted softly. Bang-chan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. They took advantage of the one thing they knew. Hyunjin looked confused. "My fear? No. Your love for your members." The room became quiet again. Hyunjin lowered his head, unable to hide the emotion in his eyes. Before anyone could speak, the dorm's intercom suddenly rang. Everyone looked toward the door. Changbin answered it. "Hello?" The building manager's voice came through the speaker. "A delivery has arrived for Stray Kids." The members exchanged puzzled glances. "We didn't order anything," Han said. Neither had the staff. Bang-chan frowned. "Ask them to leave it downstairs." A few minutes later, Bang-chan and Lino returned carrying a small cardboard box. There was no shipping label, no sender's name, only a handwritten message on the top. "For Hyunjin." The room instantly fell silent. Hyunjin's heartbeat quickened. Felix stepped closer. "Don't touch it yet." Bang-chan carefully inspected the package from every angle before slowly opening it. Inside was a simple sketchbook. Nothing else. Hyunjin stared at it in confusion. "That's mine." He opened the first page. It contained one of his old drawings from years ago. The second page. Another. The third. Another. Someone had collected artwork he thought he had lost long ago. Then he reached the final page. There, written in neat black ink, was a single sentence. "You protected him once. Will you be able to protect everyone next time?" Hyunjin's face turned pale. Felix immediately looked around the room. "Someone knows us." Bang-chan slowly closed the sketchbook. "This isn't random anymore." The members realized something terrifying. Whoever had sent the recorder hadn't simply been watching Felix. They knew Hyunjin personally. They knew his past. They knew what mattered most to him. The dorm suddenly felt much smaller. The windows no longer felt like protection. The walls no longer felt safe. Hyunjin held the sketchbook tightly against his chest, his mind racing through memories he hadn't revisited in years. He couldn't remember ever showing those drawings to anyone outside the members. Yet somehow, someone else had found them, and that meant the stranger wasn't just watching their present. They had been connected to Hyunjin's life long before any of them realized it. The dorm fell into complete silence. Hyunjin stared at the sketchbook for a long moment before slowly closing it. Instead of fear, a quiet sense of clarity settled over him. "I've been thinking about this the wrong way," he said. The members looked at him. "I kept believing I had to protect everyone by myself." Bang-chan smiled gently. "And now?" Hyunjin looked around the room, meeting each member's eyes one by one. "Now I know I never had to." No one said anything. Felix stepped forward first. "You protected me." Changbin nodded. "And now it's our turn to protect you." A warm smile finally appeared on Hyunjin's face, the first genuine smile since the nightmare had begun. The members searched through old photos, messages, and notebooks, hoping to find a clue about the mysterious sender. Hours passed, but nothing connected to the recorder, the photographs, or the sketchbook. Then Bang-chan noticed something hidden inside the back cover of the sketchbook. A folded piece of paper. He carefully unfolded it. There was no threat, no warning, only one handwritten sentence. The greatest strength isn't protecting people alone. It's trusting them to stand beside you. The members exchanged confused glances. For a moment, no one understood. Then Hyunjin quietly laughed. It was never about hurting us. Felix looked at him. What do you mean? Hyunjin looked down at the note. Whoever did this wanted me to face the fear I'd been hiding. Bang-chan gently placed the recorder, the photographs, and the note back into the box. We may never know who sent these. Maybe we don't need to, Lee No replied. What matters is that
we're all here. The others nodded. The weight that had filled the dorm for days finally began to disappear. That evening, they cooked dinner together. Han accidentally burned the vegetables, making everyone laugh. Changbin insisted the food was still edible. Sungmin teased him without mercy. In nearly dropped a plate after laughing too hard. Felix quietly stole the dessert Hyunjin had promised to save for him. When Hyunjin noticed, he simply laughed and shook his head. You really never change. Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds slowly parted, revealing a sky filled with soft golden light. Bang-chan opened the balcony door, letting the fresh evening air flow into the dorm. For the first time in days, it truly felt like home again. Hyunjin stepped onto the balcony beside Felix. Thank you. Felix smiled. You would have done the same for any of us. Hyunjin nodded. I know. He looked back into the dorm. His family was laughing together again, not because they had never been afraid, but because they had chosen to face that fear together. Hyunjin realized that courage wasn't the absence of fear, nor was it carrying every burden alone. It was trusting the people who loved you enough to share the weight. As the sun disappeared beyond the city skyline, the dorm filled once more with laughter, conversation, and the comforting noise of 8 friends who had found each other again. And from that day forward, whenever life tested them with uncertainty, they remembered the lesson hidden behind Hyunjin's painful decision. No matter how dark the night became, no one in Stray Kids would ever have to face it alone.